around here would have been casualty clearing stations and field hospitals. There are two England internationals buried here. So George Eric Burrows Dobbs, I've chosen as the first one, not because he was the first one to be killed, but because he was the first international rugby player to see action in the First World War. As a rugby player, he was a forward. He was a lithe running forward, one of the new types of forward at that time. He played for England twice in 1906 against Wales and against Ireland. His teammate in 1906 was another England player called John Edward Raphael, who was also buried in this cemetery. He's not very far, he's just here. Let's move along. So, Dobbs and Raphael played against Wales in 1906. He played more times for England, so he's more a famous rugby player. New Zealand came to Britain for the first time in 1905. That was their first tour. They weren't expected to do very much, but instead they beat almost everybody. And their captain was Dave Gallagher. He was very respected, that's why he was given the captaincy. And he changed rugby in the Northern Hemisphere. He introduced the open side flanker role. And he's one of the main reasons why that team was so successful and why New Zealand began to build up such a legacy that they still have today.
So this is Forgotten Voices of the Somme, and the Second Lieutenant Tom Adlam, Victoria Cross of the 7th Battalion, the Bedfordshire Regiment. Certain people were frightened of Mills bombs. I was teaching one fellow and he was absolutely shaking. I knew he was a good chap, but he was also so afraid. You see, take the pin out of the bomb, I said, which he did. And while you've got it in your hand, don't let the spring go off and you're all right. Then I said, now, hold yourself. Nothing can happen while you've got hold of it like that. Now just put your arm back and throw it over there. But he hung on to it until the last minute, and he brought his arm down and let go. And it lodged in the parapet he was supposed to be throwing it over. So I shouted, "Run, you silly!" And he ran back and got behind the traverse, and it blew the parapet down. He was a grand chap, really, just frightened of bombs.
Forgotten Voices of the Somme. Corporal George Ashurst, 1st Battalion Lancashire Fusiliers. Our battalion had 500 casualties. I'd lost most of my friends. These were platoon lads. They'd been boozing with us in the villages. But it was no use bothering, we knew they'd gone.
Edgar Mobbs was born in Northampton. He went to Bedford School. He was tall, rangy, played on the wing, played in the centres. Became captain of Northampton in 1907, selected for England in 1908, scored against Australia on his debut that year. He captained England in 1910 at only the second game at Twickenham in a season that England won the championship for the first time in 18 years. He was 32 when the war broke out, and he enlisted at once, as did most of them.
Forgotten Voices of the Somme, Corporal Bill Partridge, 7th Battalion, Middlesex Regiment. Well, if I said the morale was high, I'd be telling a lie. As a matter of fact, I think the thoughts of most of us after the maiden attack was that we wanted either a blighty one or ones that were a top story. We didn't want to be mutilated, that was our main thought. That and smoking a cigarette and wondering if it was going to be our last one.
So this is the grave of Rifleman Harry Tindall, who was a school teacher from Skipton, and he enlisted in 1915. He was particularly involved in the Battle of Flers-Courcelette, which took place in September, which was the first time that tanks were involved in battle. His battalion marched through the night through driving rain to get to a point over there to support the British who were under a counter-attack. By the time they reached there, the British line had collapsed and they were subject to machine gun fire and artillery fire. And it's very likely that Harry died at that time, early in the morning. And he is the cousin of your grandfather.
Grave was 20, 21, 22. I think some stat that almost a half a generation of men were wiped out in that war, and it's it is quite humbling when you see it and you think what they had to go through, and a lot of the time they were just going into a slaughter, weren't they? And it's I think it's obviously with the Armistice 100 years coming up, and it's nice to kick off a remembrance that way.
On Titval we commemorate, we have 18 rugby internationals and 18 rugby men here. And our first one is here, Lieutenant Eric Milroy. He was between 1910 to 1914 a Scottish international. He was capped 12 times. He is one of the thousands of men that was missing in the Somme still. So if you'll come round and I'll take you to one of the other rugby guys that we have. And I think it gives you quite a good perspective of understanding why, like I said, 90% of the men we commemorate on our walls here at Titval were killed during the 141 days fighting. It pretty much, I think, would take you about 5 minutes to walk down to Titval Wood, where the British front line was. It took them 4 months to get up here.
Very humbling going to all these locations, and especially at the last location at Titval, the amount of people that sacrificed their lives over a day, 70,000 people injured or killed. It just brings it to life, and serving for the last 19 years is a fantastic opportunity to come out and see where people have thought out on the battlefield and paid the ultimate sacrifice.
You get to ride through where the soldiers never came home and see where they fought over 100 years ago. It's humbling. I mean, I've been to Vimy Ridge twice now, and it's still amazing me on the vast amount of soldiers that perished there. And then obviously Titval today, it's just, you can't really understand how many people have died in such a small amount of time. And every time I go there, it's still humbling every time.
They bring it back to life really well. It never loses any significance or anything. It's a part of history, and it's a part of everything that we do now. And it's shaped all our futures.
Seeing the trenches as well, it's quite scary, seeing how close the enemies were together. Having been to Iraq and Afghanistan, it's nothing like it was 100 years ago. It's quite surreal, to be honest.
I think if you're a soldier and I've done 21 years, served in Afghanistan, I don't think that the principles of being at war are that much different from what you feel personally. You can certainly, I certainly get goosebumps when I come here or come to any of the memorials for the First World War.
If you look up at the Royal Marines, second one from the left, Royal Navy, and then he's Lieutenant Maynard AF. You got him? Yeah. So the fact that he's so high up that wall is testament to what he achieved in a short time. He played for Harlequins, Durham City and Durham County, called up for England in 1914 at the age of 19 and played 3 times that season, helped England to win a Grand Slam.
A lot of reflection, a lot of trying to get my head around the numbers, you know, just incredible. I think just glad that I did it and I was there and I experienced it.
Forgotten Voices of the Somme. Sergeant Charles Quinnell, 9th Battalion, Royal Fusiliers. Captain Gazelet was a very gallant officer, a splendid man himself, in addition to being a very, very efficient man. He had a way with him. He would never bark an order at you. He would give you an order in a conversational way. I would like you to do so and so, and by God, you did it. You gave everything you had.
Forgotten Voices of the Somme, Sergeant James Payne, 60th Battalion, the Manchester Regiment. The attack was about to start. I had a boy with me. He'd been out of school for 6 weeks. I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I've been sent out from England. I arrived today." I said, "Hang on to me." It was just stupid. The boy couldn't hold a butty knife, never mind a bayonet. He was killed, shot down next to me. We're attacking the very last German trench. We're all knocked out. The machine guns were waiting for us. We didn't get through, none of us. There's a big shell hole full of dead and dying, blinded. Tall men got it through the jaw, short men through the eyes. I was 5'10" and shot through the cheek. I was walking along and a bullet blew out all my teeth. I fell forward and spat out my teeth. I collapsed and hours later I came round. My left eye was closed. I couldn't talk, I couldn't breathe. That was all. I got my field dressing out and I wound it around my face and left eye. I see through my right eye. One of my corporals had been shot through the foot. I took his boot off, bandaged it up, put his boot on again, and he used his rifle as a crutch. Together we went back. There was nobody around, just the dead. I saw a man. A shell had come over and hit him and knocked him his left arm and his left leg. His left eye was hanging on his cheek. He was calling out, "Annie." I shot him. I had to. Put him out of his misery. It hurt me. It hurt me.